All right. Welcome to this episode of Hammering Down. I'm your host, Kaylor Hodges. I'm hoping you guys are having a great day. Today, I am being joined by two very, very special guests, Mr. Ray Samora and Mr. Andy of the Orange and Black SoccerCast, which is the Orange County SC. That is their main podcast. And just amazing content. If you ever want to hear some content from something that's not just me, I highly recommend giving them a listen. How are y'all doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for very much for having myself and Andy on to your show, sir.
Yeah, thanks for joining, or thanks for letting me join. This is a new experience for me, but hey, it's Friday night. I got a beer ready to open, so let's go.
All right. What are we drinking? What are we drinking tonight?
Ray's got something.
Got to unmute. I'm not used to being the on this side of things, so I'm muting myself while I'm making noise. I'm drinking an Embolden Beer Company. It's called Bonfire Nights. It's a pastry stout with graham crackers, marshmallow fluff, cacao nibs, and cocoa powder.
All
This
right.
is this is what
Did
we
you
got
get a
here.
unicorn frap when you got that?
You know what? I didn't know that Andy has some as well. I'm gonna grab me some. I'm gonna cut this out. So Ed or Kaylor, uh,
Yeah,
remember
yeah.
this. My fridge is right beside me. So
Yeah,
look at
I'm a
that.
huge
Professional.
dark beer person, like
Yeah.
oil looking beer, so I had to go
Oh,
with it.
that's my favorite. I love stouts so much.
Drinking
I'm
while we
weird. I
pod is par for the course for us.
I do stouts and I like sours. I'm just totally both ends of the spectrum. And I'll
Wow.
drink anything. I like any kind of beer, alcohol. Well, more beer, but yeah.
I have. So I am from around the Birmingham area, but I live outside of it. And my tiny town, USA, got their first brewery not too long ago. So shout out to Tallulah Brewery. This is their Oktoberfest, which I know
Oh,
it's a little out of season, but legitimately this is the best Oktoberfest in Alabama, and there's some good ones. So if you're looking for a good Oktoberfest, this is one.
yeah. Support local.
Support local. All right, so this this is a great start. I love a good beer conversation. I leave work from a bar, and now hey, I'm still talking about beer. So, um, so I before we get started, because you guys are Orange County, I have to ask the Chandler Hoffman experience.
Yeah.
How was that last year?
I'll go first. He's a great guy, and he unfortunately did not get to play very much for us. I think he only really played in two games, maybe three. He started the final game against Vegas and just lit them up. It was great. Um, but what we saw of him was good. I was kind of hoping he was gonna stick around, but it's a job and it's work, and they change jobs, and that's how it is.
Yeah, unfortunately, because of the injury, the recovery from injury and whatnot, and then COVID throws this crazy schedule into play. I think for Orange County, they were hoping that he could be that secondary primary scorer because there were so many 2 week or 2 game weeks. So a Saturday and then a Wednesday game or something like that. So you're hoping to get him in there so you could rotate between him and Ugo Akoli, who's now in Austin. And unfortunately for both those players, and I think this was a big part for Orange County last season, is there was no opportunity to find any kind of consistency. And Chandler Hoffman, unfortunately, suffered from that through the season. There was high expectations when he got here. We were excited to see him in the orange and black and white uniforms or jerseys. And yeah, just other than that last game, I mean, he went out with a bang at least, so that's pretty cool. I think what was it? I don't know if you remember, Andy. Was it like 19 minutes and scores a hat trick in like a 19-minute span of the match, right?
Yeah, something like that. And I think two of the goals came within just a few minutes of each other. The good news is he's playing in LA Force now. Um, so he's still kind of local for us. So if we really wanted to go watch, we could. So at least that part's good. I got a feeling he wanted to be closer to home.
Yeah, when he scored that hat trick, it was a very bittersweet day for us because obviously he's our hometown kid. He was a Birmingham guy. We wanted him to succeed, but he just never ended up panning out for us, which was really unfortunate. But we were like, great. We're playing Memphis tonight. We haven't lost to them in 4 years, going back to the NASL or NPSL, whatever NA or in whatever SLs there are out there, and we haven't lost to them. And then we lose 3-1. We're like, oh great, how could tonight get worse? Oh yeah, the guy we loaned out for, he just scored a hat trick on the same night in like 20 minutes. Great, wonderful. Hometown kid we shipped out. What a
Uh,
night that was. So, but I hope he's doing all right. I doubt he's listening to this, but if you are, Chandler, good luck. Um, but let's go ahead and move on to this week's soccer news, which is what we're here to discuss this week in USL. Second week we're doing this. So the biggest news coming out, well, the biggest news that affects everybody is the divisions for USL. So we don't know the schedule yet, but we at least know who we're going to be playing like 4 times. So for Orange County, what are you guys looking at? Who are your opponents this coming up year?
So for Orange County, they're in the Pacific Division. It's a is it 7 or 8 team? 8 team division, I believe.
right.
Um, and I bias, on the West Coast here. I feel like it's a very tough group. Just like last year, we were talking about the small group that Orange County was in was a very difficult group with a pesky San Diego, with Los Dos and Phoenix, and Vegas, who you can never really plan for because they're so unpredictable
Yeah.
when it comes to what they bring to the pitch. So this year they're paired with all those same teams, and then you're also adding Sacramento Republic, Tacoma Defiance, and the newest team here on the West Coast, Oakland Roots. So you got some solid teams there, right? Sacramento is a solid team, although apologize to the fans out there. I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit here later on in this show. You got always tough Phoenix, and San Diego showed last season. I mean, they should have made the playoffs if they weren't looking at the bigger social picture. Forfeiting or giving up points when you're in the midst of a playoff battle. Um, Probably not many teams would do something like that. But so you're looking at probably a good 4, maybe 5 teams in that division that can probably say they are fighting for a, a late push into the, Western Conference Finals, playoffs, or however that's going to work.
Yeah, I mean, whenever I'm looking at your division, it's kind of hard to say who a clear favorite, I guess, would be whenever you're thinking outside of, your big teams, which would be Phoenix, which I think Phoenix, everybody knows, is, unless some horrible happens, is probably going to finish first. I mean, just the way they is. I mean, they're really, really good. Um,
Sure.
and I mean, after that, I feel like it's a battle for second place, which it's still going to be a heck of a battle. I think my this is a person who I watch as many West Coast games as I can, but even then I can't watch all of them. I don't have that kind of time. And it feels like to me it's going to be a battle between Orange County and whatever Sacramento team shows up, because we don't really know about Oakland Roots. They could either be absolutely fantastic or they could be Miami FC from last year where they show up and just do nothing besides have cool uniforms. Um
Read my mind.
and then Tacoma, they're going to suck. Let's just throw that out there. I mean, Los Dos, they're a 2 team as well. I mean, they could they could throw out some of their good players if they really get into a playoff scrap like baby Bulls do all the time. But are they going to really care that much? I don't think so. And then Las Vegas. We'll talk about them, but you're going to have a weird El Trafico derby, but not really thing. But they'll also throw down some good players every now and then. But will they care? So really, it's Sacramento, Orange County, the Loyal, and everybody else.
Let me just
Yeah,
say something. I'll let Andy speak really quick on this as well.
sure.
I wouldn't be so quick to say Phoenix is a shoe in to win, and I apologize for behind the scene. Hopefully, you don't get any copyright infringement for the ESPN alert there on my phone. But I wouldn't call Phoenix a shoe in. Yes, they have probably the deepest pockets, at least the most willingness to spend out of any team in this group. They just stole a very big fan favorite from Orange County in Aiden Quinn.
I love him so
But
much.
trust me, we love him as well. And we'll be cheering for him anytime he's not playing against Orange County. I can say that probably I could speak for almost any Orange County fan or any of the supporters in County Line Coalition. But if you look at Orange County's roster, we are pretty well placed in every position. And typically we go into the preseason and we even go into like the first week of the season still waiting for that last two or three pieces to be added to the roster. And I think this season, the front office has done a really good job of filling out the roster with veteran players, experienced USL players, some, maybe players that haven't panned out in Europe. But still have that potential to come here to the U.S. and shine. We've seen that happen a few times with some players that have come over here. One of them, Thomas Enevoldsen, who's still on our roster, even though he was loaned out last season. And then a nice mix of youth into this club. I would not be so quick to say Phoenix is a shoe in. Andy, I don't know if you agree with me on that or if you have any other thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, on paper, they are a really good team, and that's no different than probably the last 3 seasons, maybe 4 or more seasons. But you know, I don't want to say that no other group is as hard as ours, but you know, I agree with the you know I agree with how you characterize those other teams. I think the only one you need to watch out for is Los Dos. Um, we talk a lot of crap about them, but they are not a bad team. They are very hit and miss. So you don't know what you're going to get week to week, even if it's the same players. They could run out and beat Sacramento 2-0 and then get shelled by Phoenix 3 days later and lose 5-0. So you just never know what you're going to get with them. They're probably I don't want to say a dark horse, but I would call them a spoiler because if you drop points to them, you're just hosed, and that's what we saw last year. I think 2 years ago we lost 2 games to them, and just for no reason. We would just lose when we were outplaying them and just couldn't get the ball in the net. Even Rob Kiernan has said in the past that they're one of the best teams that he played, at least last year. And the key thing that he mentioned was you can tell that they've played together for a long time, and that's par for the course for those guys, right? Because those are all their academy kids who have grown up together and played together for since they were what, like 8 or 10 or something. So you don't see that normally on a USL roster where you've got these men playing against, let's be honest, a bunch of boys who I don't want to say they play dirty, but they're right on that edge of where I would start thinking that they play dirty. But they've been doing what they do with each other for a long time, and they're just able to, hit balls and collect passes that a lot of teams wouldn't be able to do. So I don't think they get into the playoffs by any stretch, whatever the playoffs end up looking like. But I could definitely see them stealing points from people that Orange County included. I can definitely see them stealing points from people that keeps them from advancing.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like Los Dos because, like I said, I try to watch as many matches as possible. I'm sure, like you guys, I'm a football or soccer junkie. I can't get enough of it. I'll watch any game. ESPN has been such a nice little injection for me for just so many stupid matches. I never thought I liked Indian Soccer League, but here we are. I watch it every single day. Don't know
Thank
why.
you. Thank you, ESPN Plus. Indian Super League every morning on every Saturday morning.
But your Los Dos to me, the way you describe them, it sounds like Memphis for us, where they're not good. They're really not. And then they'll have a world class match against you or against some other team. They'll shock you. And then the next week, they'll give up 6 goals. And why? Why did that happen? No idea. They just did. But I think the issue with some of those academy teams is that somebody has a good game, they get called up, and then they just sit on a bench, and then they'll send down some other guy who isn't doing too well, who's probably just really depressed because he got sent down to the two team, where, like you said, he's playing with a bunch of teenagers,
Yeah,
which I'm sure it's disheartening, and you're probably not going to be playing your best game whenever you're demoted. But it's just the nature of the beast, I guess. But I'm really interested to see how Oakland does. I They could either be world stoppers, or they could be horrible. We don't know,
yeah,
but they're going to have a lot of cultural support from across the U.S., which they might end up being one of those teams that just end up getting really big and getting a lot of money because a lot of people like what they stand for and they like that they have cool uniforms and all that kind of stuff. So in a few years, they might have some deep pockets like Phoenix, which they might be able to knock them off that perch just a little bit.
They already have one of the best logos in the league, so I mean, they have that going for them.
True. I
what
mean, it
about
is
their
a
turf? Do they have the best turf in the league?
Probably not. Looking at the other divisions, we have the Mountain Division, which that's the one that has 7 teams because Reno decided to fold, which may they rest in peace. That so dumb. I hate it for them.
For Reno and Andy, you can probably speak of this. That's probably one of our favorite away experiences ever, was going to Reno, because those people are awesome. The fans are awesome. The atmosphere is awesome there, and their podcast that covered them, 1868 Weekly, was an amazing group of guys. So yeah, we'll miss those guys. We'll miss that group of fans and that club, that team, tremendously this season.
Yeah, they need to get a new team back. I mean, that was such a they were just awesome. But the other teams that they have, you have Toros, which they're kind of another one of those teams that they'll put on a good match and then they'll just fall off because reasons don't know why. You have the Bold, which think they're going to take on the Verde, the or Austin FC. Don't know. Apparently, they're just challenging MLS teams now for some reason. Then you have San Antonio, which they're always a good team. They're probably going to be just on that cusp of making the playoffs. They could either finish second or finish fifth. It's just kind of which team shows up this year. You have you have New Mexico, who is probably either going to be first or second to me. You have El Paso, who I think is going to be first, but I wouldn't be shocked if New Mexico makes a run. You have Switchbacks, who I don't know. I really don't know about the Switchbacks. They're bad, and then they're good for like 30 minutes. They'll score a lot of goals, and then they'll just forget how to play soccer altogether. I don't know. And then you have Real, who again, two team who they'll send down their good players when need be and win a championship, and then brag about it like they didn't just send down all their MLS players to win a championship. So that's the
Do they
mount.
do the Monarchs do that though? I kind of question when I hear those types of things,
I
because the Monarchs have a really good youth structure. Fun fact: I believe that they have rights to uh, Phoenix area youth in their academy. Um, they were not good last season, but the season before they were, I mean, they won, right? So they had to be
Yeah.
good at some level. And it's not like they just threw 12 first team guys at their roster and said, go win. So, I mean, yeah, they can be not good, but they tend to be pretty good. They're one of those, If we went into the dream scenario where we kicked out all the two teams, that's one that I would probably want to hold on to.
You stole my words
You
right there,
know,
Andy. I was just going to say that they're probably the two team that actually tries to compete in the USL way instead of like a lot of teams either sending down players or not even really caring about their two team and just using it as playing time for their potential players. I think out of all of them, the Monarchs are probably the best run two team in the USL.
Yeah, I I throw cheap shots around a lot of the two teams, and I think for me it's because I have a lot of experience in watching the Baby Bulls, who were them and who was the other team that did it real. Loudon was pretty rough about it, and also Richmond. Those three teams, if they had a big match coming up, they'll just find somebody who might be someone who's on the 18. They'll be like, all right, you're not on the 18 anymore. Go beat this team. We need to stay first. I mean, we need to stay first in the USL. And it just left a sour taste in my mouth. Monarchs do it right, but I still feel like everything should be tilted to their advantage, but then they're really almost all two teams are really bad, which makes no sense to me. But it is what it is. Then moving to the Central Division, which is where Legion are, we have Sporting KC, who were really good last year, but they're another one of those teams that one year they'll turn it on, then one year they'll forget how to play entirely.
yeah,
We have Indy 11, who lost all their good players, picked up Cal Jennings from Memphis, and then called it a day. Um, this might make a lot of the indie fans who follow me upset, but I don't think they're going to be that great this year. And by that great, I mean to indie standards of competing for a championship. I think they're going to be a sneak in the back door of the playoffs kind of team. I don't see them competing much higher than that, but I kind of hope I'm wrong because I like the USL. The USL East anyway is a lot better when Indy's good. Then you have OKC Energy, who is just bad. They are just really bad.
uh,
There's no other way around that one. Louisville City, who is basically FC Cincinnati's feeder team for all their rejects, but I mean that's still MLS talent playing in the USL. I think they have 4 players right now that were on the FC Cincinnati MLS roster that just never made it. Good for them, I guess. You guys have one of those, Tommy McCabe. I'm pretty sure.
yep,
So he's a good player. He just has a lot of growing he needs to do. Then we have FC Tulsa, who I think might be a dark horse to a conference championship game. I don't think they'll make it to the USL championship, but I think they could sneak their way into a conference championship game. They have all the talent there. They just need to utilize it. We have Memphis 901, who currently has as many players on contracts as USL has divisions. So that's impressive. Um, then there's
At least it's
Legion.
more than Vegas.
At least we'll get there, but at least Vegas has someone helping them out. Memphis is doing this all by themselves. We have Legion, who complete homer. I will totally admit that. I think we'll probably finish second or third. I could see us finishing first, but in the end, I think Louisville's probably going to be better than us. And then you have two United, who are just they're so bad. They are so bad. They don't have any of those games where they shock you. They're just bad all the time. And then finally, the Atlantic Division, you have Baby Bulls, you have Hartford, who a lot of people are drinking the Kool Aid on. I'm not too sure yet. I think we need to hold out on them. Pittsburgh, who always has a world class goalkeeper in goal. We have Loudon United, who are just they're there. They play. Charlotte Independence, who cannot stop sticking their own foot into their mouth. Charleston, who is getting a new stadium. Congrats to them. They're probably going to be pretty good. The Rowdies, who are probably going to win the East easily. And Miami FC, who are sneaky good this year. They made a lot of good signings. Let's just hope they gel.
Can we
maybe.
say wasn't that the same story last year that Miami FC was making a lot of good moves and then sort of fell on their face early on in the season and just didn't work out?
Yeah, I think the difference is this year is that they picked up guys who are USL veterans. Before they picked up some USL guys but they weren't people who got real playing time. They brought a lot of their guys who are really good in NASL, but those leagues just aren't comparable anymore. They were a couple years ago, but the standard of play is, I believe, I could be wrong here, but USL has surpassed NASL. And so whenever you bring all your NASL players, it's just not going to be the same as it would have been 5 years ago. I think 5 years ago they would have been a real team to compete with. Last year, maybe not as much, but this year, I mean, they've signed some great players, and the issue never was is that their starters were horrible. It's just whenever their starters got hurt, their depth sucked. Now this year they have a lot of depth that they can work with. So Miami could sneak into the back door, but if everything goes right for them, they could easily be a third in the tables kind of team, to me anyway. But I kind of want to pick up on one of your facial reactions, Andy. Which, if you're not watching this on YouTube and you're just listening to it, there was a real moment of, huh, that's something. Charlotte Independence. I wasn't originally going to talk about this, but man, what a dumpster fire that is happening over there. They have to be the most unfunctional functioning team of all time. They just cannot stop getting in their own way.
Yeah, that that's just a bad story that keeps getting worse. And talk about, I mean, how many adjectives can I use? Tone deaf, wrong side of history. I mean, just go down the list, and I feel bad for the people that work there, right? Because they're just wage earners like the rest of us. They just got some job being a ticket rep, and now they're on the front line of that, and they're trying to make their sales figures, and those guys are all just trying to work, and they're caught in the crossfire of all this. Am I allowed to cuss on this? Am I allowed to
Go
use
for it.
profanity?
Go
They're
for it.
cut. They're caught in all the middle of this fucking bullshit, and I feel bad for them. I feel bad for the supporters group, because I mean that's a rough place to support lower division soccer, right? Like no place is easy. I mean, unless you're in Phoenix
No.
or New Mexico or El Paso. If you're in one of those places, it seems easy. But like everywhere else, like you're fighting tooth and nail for like every new fan you get to a game. So I feel awful for the supporters, and I feel awful for the front office staff. I mean, I don't know any of them, but I have to imagine they're just a bunch of wage earners trying to pay their rent.
Yeah, just the news today. If you're not aware, Charlotte Independence, they decided to get themselves out of headlines for a grand total of 3 days before they decided to make a grand emergence yet again, in which they ended up removing their own fan run supporters group from their website, which was the Jacks Militia. And then they started their own club supporters group, which I it's a weird comparison, but it's basically a premium supporters group, which is essentially the OnlyFans version of supporters group at this point. And then they and then
I
they're
love
and
that comparison. I love that comparison, by the way. That is perfect.
You
I
know
don't know
too
how
much about
else
OnlyFans, Ray.
I don't know how else to describe it. And then on top of all that, they're like, "Oh, we're planning to become a fan-run organization." Oh yeah, don't forget we have one of those. And the Jacks Militia, which is the original supporters group, the one that I will be recognizing, that's their name, Jacks Militia. The Charlotte Independence, and Dan, whatever his name is, something Italian, and he was like, "I have an original name, guys. How about the Jacks Brigade?" They've never heard of that one before. I come. I mean, tone deaf. I know you said tone deaf. I mean, how dumb. You have a guy at FC Charlotte, Charlotte FC, whatever it is, Tepper, who is with the PSLs or whatever it is. I mean, stupid, so stupid. This is your chance to get those fans and say, we're not a money grabbing scheme. We're not here for your money. We're here for your love. Here's our premium supporters group section that you're paying for, that's club owned. Forget about the one that came around naturally that actually support us, even though we are a dumpster fire.
And you know, that just plays into, and I'm going to just single it out. I'm not trying to generalize, but it's sort of the Americanization of the sport, right? It's we're going to do it our way. Who cares the way every other club, every other country does things, where you organically grow fans and you have fans that create these groups that become fanatics for your team and support your team through thick and thin. It's crazy that would happen. And yeah, I'll stick with you on this one, Kayla. I'm gonna be like, yeah, let's recognize Jack's militia, not this other brigade thing. It's that's weird. That is just I can't I'm so flustered over this. I can't even get any words out. Which Andy will joke that's me normal on a normal podcast, but
You
uh,
get words out. They're just not the right
the
words.
wrong words. The
Yeah.
wrong words. Yeah. I'm trying not to do that here, so that's why I'm just sort of tongue tied at the moment.
It's it's just stunning. It is absolutely stunning. And we're going to skip a little bit further than I was originally planning to, but I mean, you have Charlotte FC, who is just cannot get out of their own way. They're ridiculous. I talked to Elliot Barr the other day, who runs the Can I Kick It podcast, and he was talking about how basically on the last day or the last couple days of Black History Month, they finally made a Black History Month post. And this is well after weeks and weeks and weeks of saying, "Hey guys, buy our premium seats. Hey, this is a great idea. Everyone in the USL is doing it, or everybody in the MLS is doing it." And everybody's like, "No, they're not." But they have all these things prepared. And then so it's just suddenly tone deaf, and everybody's like, "That's the worst owner in all of American soccer. This guy is the worst. He doesn't get it." And then you have Sacramento, who he pulls out of ownership, and they lose MLS, which is complete garbage. And you think that would take up all the headlines for the rest of the week. And then the USL team, Charlotte Independence, he just comes from the top rope and just Batista bombs Sacramento through every single table that he could find. Just absolutely ridiculous how tone deaf he is. But going to that Sacramento conversation, man, I feel so bad for that team. I feel so bad for those fans. I mean, just heartbroken for them.
Well, let's say this, right? Sacramento Republic was created to someday become an MLS franchise. Like from day one, that was sort of their mission. I mean, they let it be known that that's what their goal was. It wasn't that they wanted to stick around USL. It wasn't that they wanted to be a local minor, you know, or lower division soccer club. Their goal was MLS, and they finally achieved that goal. And yes, this is it sucks the way it happened, but I mean, let's say I mean COVID played a part of this. You know, for those that aren't in California, California things have been shut down pretty much most of the past 12 months, including sports. And I know, speaking with, you know, people from Orange County, it was difficult to deal with no fans in the stands. That's a major revenue stream for USL clubs. That's pretty much how they all make their money, is by bringing fans into the stadium. They make very little off any kind of ESPN Plus package and all that. So I think that all played a big part in what happened, but it still sucks that happened, and the way that all happened to the Sacramento fans, because I know they were excited about it. You know, someone that's been on our show quite a bit, Alicia, from she now sort of runs a bunch of stuff on SB Nation in California, but she was a big part of Angels on Parade. And I know she had played a part in the Sacramento Republic coverage for SB Nation. And part of that was, you know, that was the only dedicated USL SB Nation page, because everyone's like, they're going to be MLS someday. Let's run with it. Let's do it. So that didn't happen, but big blow for those fans up there. we'll have to see what happens because I think most of them are ready for MLS, and we're sort of, you know, ready to forget USL if we want to say that. We'll see what happens with that. Are they going to lose some fan base out of that? That's going to be a big storyline for that team and for the fans out here in California.
That's it's really worrying for me because the only other instance I can remember being like this where they bring out the scarf, they bring out the welcoming committee, and are like, "Hey, you're an MLS," but they don't sign the contract. Is I think Cleveland. Cleveland was supposed to get a team. They brought out the scarf, they brought out the fancy pictures, and Cleveland is not even in USL League One. They don't even have a team there.
Didn't
And
the lead investor pass away? Is that what I'm remembering?
I'm almost positive that's it. It's not the same exact situation, but
Yeah.
there was still no contract signed then, and USL or even MLS or USL has completely fallen by the wayside for Cleveland, and with a team in Columbus and a team in Cincinnati in MLS, the MLS is not going to happen for Cleveland. They're just praying for a USL team or an NASL team or whatever to hopefully get second division. And while it looks like Sacramento is going to stick around USL at least for now, I don't know how well you can say, yeah, for sure, we are going to stick with this because after so many years of failing to go to MLS, how many other their investors are going to pull out of this, which is a kind of a grim part of the story that I don't think anyone wants to talk about, but it's there, and I think everybody kind of thinks about it.
I think they pull enough fans though, where there's at least enough stability to remain a USL, a solid USL franchise. I know they're usually towards the top of the attendance, at least as far as I can remember. Um, I mean, in Orange County, we could only hope to have that type of following or fan base. It's been difficult. I know Andy's usually one of the first in the front line trying to recruit new fans, recruit people to come out to matches. And so I think that Sacramento has that going for them. And the bigger question I think for me is who steps in line now to replace Sacramento in that potential slot for MLS. I know people say maybe Phoenix, maybe New Mexico. I would assume they would try and keep it in the West Coast, so those might be some options. But yeah, it's I think they are strong enough that they will survive this. But now what happens next? It's
Yeah.
hard. It's that hard thing, like when you're saying, "Hey, I'm leaving you for a better person," and then, "Oh wait, no, take me back, please." I didn't mean to do that to you. Type scenario.
Yeah. I
Yeah. Realistically, any league that Sacramento plays in, they make that league better. I mean, let's be honest. They've their teams are almost always competitive. They have good fan support. I mean, let's get our heads past the 22 consecutive sellouts or whatever the claim was for a couple years, and we can all look at the TV and say, no, it's not. Uh, but they got away from that. I think the last two. I think in 2019 they actually started showing a little more realistic attendance. So despite all that, attendance is not the metric, right? That's just a gauge of how well your local community is engaged in the team, and whether it's 10,500 or 11,000. I mean, that's kind of immaterial. When your stadium is at 98% capacity, that's a good sign. So whatever ends up happening to them, I think that's good for them. Of course there are hurdles, right? There are not a bunch of billionaires running around looking to throw money into a hole called professional soccer, and whether that's USL or MLS, those people, because there could be billionaire women. I don't know. Those people are not out there just like waving their Scrooge McDuck like stack of $1,000 bills around, wanting to buy a soccer team. So this is gonna happen more. This is not the end of us watching investors either not want to sign up or bail. Andy's opinion. I don't think this is the end of it. I think we're going to see more of this. I think we're probably going to see where, you know, you know, uh, Sacramento's in a tough spot, right? Like MLS has kind of said like, well, hey, we want to work with you and make it happen, but yeah, you pulled our crest off your little expansion team list. So what does that mean? I mean, that's like unfriending your ex when you're just on a break, right? Like, hey, we're going to take a break while I'm at school, and then she unfriends you when you go off to school. Like, that's kind of what it feels like right now. So, you know, I would love for them to be able to live their dream and be where they want to be. But, the the future for USL has a trajectory that's only going to go higher, right? Um, I mean, look at Louisville and where they started and where they're at. I mean, you wouldn't even think that was the same team playing in a jacked up baseball stadium, and now they have a beautiful stadium of their own. That's going to become more and more the norm for USL teams, and we'll start seeing these teams kind of float up to the, top of the standings, top of the business metrics. We're going to start seeing more of that, and there's nothing wrong with being a really good second division team with really good fan support, really good competitive record. There's nothing wrong with that, but you definitely have to reset your expectations between being a really good USL team and, maybe a not super good MLS team.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like as a fan, I kind of understand that as well. Because before Legion were announced, I went to the Birmingham Hammers matches, which is when we were in like the fourth, fifth division in PDL and MPSL and whatever SLs, like I said earlier. Um, you know, I went to those matches and I loved it. I have fond memories, but I was there for the inaugural match of FC Cincinnati and USL, and I loved it. I fell in love with it. I was like, all right, here we go. This is my team. And I supported FC Cincinnati, and I still do, but they're not my hometown club like Birmingham is. But I went from, being in the playoffs in the USL, and this is so much fun, and the fan support is great. And we have a support of kind of what you're describing with Sacramento. It's like big fish, small pond. Same with Louisville, big fish, small pond. This is great. This is awesome. And then you move to MLS, and the one difference I could tell from, because I remember going to the first inaugural match for USL, and then I went to not the first MLS match, but I went to our first season, and just the presentation of the match, everything like that. This is a term that I think gets thrown out a little too much, but plastic. It just didn't feel real anymore. It didn't feel like the same experience that I remember growing up with. And the one thing USL does, and they do really well, I criticize USL a ton, but man, they are so much more connected to their fans. Someone like Charlotte, that hap- with their SGs being called out or whatever, or not, or not being informed of what was happening, or them making their own SG. That's big news in the USL. The Montreal Impact or whatever they are now, they changed their name, did not talk to any kind of supporters, and that made news for a day, and that was it, and everybody forgot, because that's the kind of league MLS is. And that shows you how much they don't care about their fan support. They're there for the money. And USL, while they are there for the money, it just doesn't feel that way. It might be that way, but they do a better job at hiding it.
Well, I think with the USL too, I think a lot of the owners, give or take maybe a couple, realize that it's the fans that are going to make or break their clubs, their teams. You don't have the big money TV deals like the MLS will have. Yes, both leagues are on ESPN, but one's on Big Brother ESPN, the other's on streaming ESPN Plus for a majority of their matches. So it's I get it. That's what I love about the USL. Here in Orange County, we joke about it on our podcast all the time. A lot of fans outside of our area don't realize it's tough to make it as a team. Orange County is part of the greater LA sports market. So you got, I've spoken with front office of Orange County, and they talk to the local stations, and those stations respond with, we don't even cover our MLS soccer teams, let alone USL, right? So I think the USL ownership, most of them, and the front offices know that the fans are what makes or breaks your team, your club, and helps them survive and helps them become a viable uh, team in the league. And so I get what you're saying on there. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, whenever I'm thinking about the Legion, uh, I know because I work in a bar, and whenever the matches were on, I throw it up on a screen or two, and somebody'd be like, "Is that Birmingham playing soccer?" And I'd be like, "Yeah," and they're like, "We have a team." Yeah. Oh, cool. I had no idea. Are they like a minor league team? I'm like, no, they're fully professional. Oh, really? Yeah. Well, we might go out there sometime. Just stuff like that. You see it on TV. It's like, wow, that's crazy. That's so interesting. Meanwhile, if it was MLS, it's like, great. That's on TV again. I want to go watch football now. USL, as bad as it sounds, it'll create real fans, but there's still some novelty to it where you just stumble across and you're like, huh, look at that. And not really like MLS where the cities will shove it down your throat because it's first division. Here it is, shiny and new. And or you're on TV and you're looking for, oh great, I want to watch some NBA or I want to watch baseball today. Why do I care about Minnesota playing Seattle in soccer? Like, who cares? You know, there's still a little bit of that novelty to it, which I hate saying that because I love my team to death. I mean, Birmingham, the Legion's only been around for 3 years now, and I couldn't imagine this team not being in my life. But and all that matters is that a few more fans watch, and that's the thing. Like you said, is that the clubs here in USL they care. They're like, yeah, get those guys in for that one time. MLS, they don't have to care. They'll still be billionaires even if the team folds.
And I'll throw it to Andy really quick, but I just want to ask the question here. What makes it hard for Orange County is, again, we're in a big sports market, a big media market, and I think most people that live in Orange County, if you're not the major league team or the first division team or at the top of the pyramid when it comes to your sport, it's difficult. And I think Andy can contest to this because he's been someone that's tried his heart out to try and bring fans to the game. And I've seen social media posts from Andy. I've seen stuff from Andy where he says, "Hey, I get people out to these games and they tell me they love it, and then they never come back." And I think a big part of that for us here in Orange County is that thought of, we are a big market. Why am I going to go support a minor league or a lower division team? Andy, I don't know if you want to throw in your 2 cents on that.
Yeah, there's a lot of challenges for lower division sports in Southern California. And we could probably have a podcast episode just on this topic. But a few things I will throw out is, first and foremost, Orange County doesn't have their own local television. So we have that barrier already. So even if we wanted to get on local television, we're on like Spectrum channel 812, whatever it is.
Or streaming on Spectrum's website.
Yeah. So, there's that. We don't really have a culture in Orange County of supporting lower division sports because we haven't really had any.
Yeah.
Orange County Soccer Club started as the LA Blues. Just a little trivia there for you in 2011. And they played at a stadium at Cal State Fullerton, which is less than 2 miles from my house. And I think they played there for a year or two, and I didn't even know. So, there is a challenge. There's a lot of noise to cut through, right? So you've got, you, just in our area alone, we've got NHL, two NHL teams, two Major League Baseball teams, Now we have two NFL teams, which we've had anywhere from no NFL teams to three NFL teams, I think. Um, and then we've got two NBA teams. Am I missing anything, Ray?
MLS.
Oh yeah, and then of course two MLS teams that are in our.
And then we got to throw in legit like well-known popular university college programs, right?
Yeah,
USC football, UCLA basketball. Even
but
I want to say probably even Long Beach State baseball is probably more popular than what Orange County Soccer Club does in our area. And I know, Kayla, I mean, you're in Alabama, so I know college sports is a big thing where you live. But when you have a soccer team that has to compete with only basically Alabama football, it makes it a lot easier than competing against 12 to 14 other sports, professional or college teams that you have to really compete with for the limited media resources and space that you have. And because we're Orange County and not LA, that makes it even more difficult.
yeah, and it's just the volume of the noise from those other teams. It's really hard to break through that. And you know, Kayla, you said the same thing where you'd put the game on and people are like, oh gosh, what's that? I'll wear my jersey out and about like, what's that? Oh, it's our local pro team. Really? We have one? Like, yeah, they've been around since 2011. What? Like everyone's super surprised. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of other things. Like I said, we could talk only about that for the whole episode. But that's just some of the challenges for it. And I'm not saying we're the only ones who have that. I'm sure everyone has challenges in their market, but we are a particularly crowded media space. I mean, I'm not sure if it gets any more crowded anywhere except maybe like New York, like Queensboro. I'm super worried about them, right? They got a lot going on out there. They have the same type of challenges we do. You know, they probably have the same type of problem as we do where a lot of people that live here aren't from here. So when you move here, you bring your sports with you, usually. Not always, usually. Or you inherit sports from your parents. Like I inherited the Denver Broncos from my parents. And now you can tell I'm kind of an old guy. So I inherited the Broncos when they were terrible. And I stuck with it for a long, long time. So, that's, we can just layer these things on top of each other and say, like, this is why it's hard to get people to an Orange County Soccer Club game. And that's everybody. You're seeing that. I have friends in San Antonio. I have family in San Antonio. They're going through that. We all go through that. And it's just hard to get people out to games, and it's hard to cut through the noise. It's just what I call all that kind of stuff. It's just noise. And to break through that is super challenging.
Well, one last thing I'll say on this topic before we move on is something kind of interesting. You're talking about the major league vibe that you get in Orange County, you get in the LA area. And Birmingham has the opposite problem. And it's not to the extent that you guys have, but it's still an issue, which I think is interesting. Birmingham has gotten the label of being a minor league city, where we have a small little hockey team, small little rinky dink hockey team. We have minor league baseball, which people know because Michael Jordan played here. Shout out to my uncle for catching a foul ball from Michael Jordan, but then got booed because he had until he gave it to a little 2 year old. That 2 year old probably doesn't care, but he still got booed. But that's beyond the point. Um, and then you have Legion, who are second division. Oh, and we also have a G League team coming. So those are three teams where most guys are getting paid, but people consider it minor league because they end up jumping in the ladder. And then you have Legion who come in, and everybody's like, great, another minor league team. I'll care when a major league team comes. Like, show me when a major league team comes, then I'll care. Until then, this is just going to be another one of those a little take your kids out to the ballpark kind of day, do their little fan things, their little promotion, and we'll go on with our day. And it's a little bit different, and I would rather be in this situation than having to compete with 10 plus fully professional, fully top division teams. but it still kind of sucks that people see the USL as minor league, which I completely disagree with. All of our guys there are getting paid. They are professional. You have some maybe in League One, maybe, but I mean League Two is really PDL. That's amateurs mostly. But the championship, it's all professional. That is a professional club being ran by real millionaires, some real billionaires that have a real investment in this. This isn't just some minor league baseball game where you go out, you'll have a beer, you'll eat a hot dog, maybe you'll participate in the hot dog race in the middle of the seventh inning. Like it's not the same thing. And I hate it, but people just can't get past that. And it's really frustrating for me because I try to convince people to go out or go to a match and be like, it's different. And they're like, okay, we'll come when they're in the MLS.
So I would assume then Kaylor's going to love the race against the Chick-fil-A cow at Orange County
Hey,
soccer club matches, right?
Awesome.
Get,
um,
I'll tell you what, the best way to get people there, convince your front office to have a beer festival.
We do have a nice little I guess they call it the tailgate, which it's
what is a
basically in
tailgate? What is a tailgate, Andy? I don't know what that is.
well,
We're not
hold
allowed to
on.
do that where we are.
Well, we have a tailgate inside of the grounds. So basically inside the stadium, they have a tailgate area set up where you can go and buy food from food trucks and drink beer out there. They'll have secretly they'll bring a keg out, but you can't tell people that.
Nobody
Um,
listens to this, they won't know.
yeah, they'll have no idea. We're like 45 minutes or an hour into this podcast. Anybody at the front office has stopped listening at this point. Clayton, if you're listening to this, I'm sorry. Um, but moving on from this topic, because we have been going for a while, which I've been thoroughly enjoying the conversation. It's been really interesting hearing something from the LA perspective of what USL is like.
Not
But
LA.
speak, but
Yeah, LA is a landfill, buddy. LA is a landfill where all of our trash goes.
well, speaking of LA's trash, let's talk about Las Vegas, huh?
Oh,
So,
What a
uh,
transition. I love it.
oh,
Props to you if I had a beer still.
so Las Vegas is becoming LAFC 2. I don't think they're officially getting that name, but that's essentially what they are. How, I mean, do you really think that's going to change too much in how you guys go against them? Because they were a literal cash grab when they were dropping cash from helicopters, and then they brought a llama, and then that was about the coolest thing they did, and that was the most success they had. Outside that, does this really going to change anything, or is it just like, okay, cool? They might have some cool players come down every now and then. We might have a player that we've heard of before.
I'm going to defer to Andy because I think he's heard some of the stuff in social media from some of the LAFC fans and the Las Vegas fans and what this is potentially going to mean. Or am I thinking of the wrong person, Andy?
you might be thinking of the wrong person, but I have been kind of paying attention to the story, so I will just throw in what I do know. So, of course, this is all still unofficial. Like nothing's been confirmed by either team or the league front office. So a lot of this is all just like based off one, tweet or one article from the Athletic, but nothing's still been confirmed. Now, granted, I think it was Jeff Reuter, and he's seems to have his sources. So, if you're not following him on Twitter, you definitely should be. So, still nothing is confirmed. And hey, surprise, we're like 2 months away from starting the season, maybe 2.5 months. They have one player on their roster announced, one guy. Now, granted, he was like their top scorer last year, but that's the only guy on their roster. So that being said, other things that tie into the game day experience is they also do not have Zappos as a shirt sponsor anymore, and that's where the llamas came from. So I don't think I don't think we're going to see llamas anymore. So that goes away. My personal opinion, without anything really to back it up, just based on what I have kind of, added up two and two together between what we saw when Ronaldo was there, hey buddy, and then what we saw when other folks, hey buddy, what we saw in, just real news, not just like social media news. But I don't get the impression that the owner wants to be there anymore. I kind of get the impression that his intent was to stand up a team and let someone else buy it and let him cash out and walk away. And the lack of anyone wanting to do that has I get the feeling he's just done, right? Like 2020 burned him out. He's done. He doesn't want to pour any money into that hole anymore. Um, will it be different? I think we'll probably see a lot of, the same kind of thing we saw with RGV, some of the same kind of things we saw with Colorado Springs Switchbacks when I think the Rapids were in charge of their technical side. We saw some of that with Reno, where the Quakes were in charge of their technical side, and the team didn't. They kind of suffered for it. They could have been better, but it's what it is. The real issue is, and we said it in the beginning when we said support local. Is it your local team anymore when the guys are training in LA and living in LA, literally living and training in LA, and just driving 5 hours to the game every Friday, or every Friday night, and then playing Saturday and coming home? I don't think that's local soccer anymore, and I think that's the basis of what USL is. It's local soccer, and I
And
think
Yeah.
it'll be interesting because with Los Dos, most of their fans are the like family or friends of the players there, and they're local. They're in LA, so they play in LA, so their friends and family can come to those matches. How many friends and family of LAFC two or Las Vegas Lights, whatever we'd call them, are going to realistically make that trip, 10 to 15 times a year out to Las Vegas to go watch their friends or their family members play for that squad? And then the second question is, how many of those Las Vegas fans are on board? I know I've seen on social media some of them seem excited that they're going to get to see future MLS talent, but realistically, how many players come through MLS and or sorry, through USL, play major minutes on their USL team and eventually make it to the MLS? It happens, but it's not this like, it's not like in Major League Baseball where you are seeing the next, big
Yeah.
star come through your system. A lot of USL players are legit USL players. That's why they're here. And because the way soccer is built with multiple tiers in every country in the world, there's not this sort of organic growth where you go to a lower league team and grow up, at least in the US, because unfortunately, the US, we restrict the way the team structure and promotion, relegation, all that stuff. That's another topic. Again, he mentioned about a whole podcast episode. You could talk a whole like 4 or 5 episodes about that. So it's going to be really interesting to see like who's going to travel from LA to go see these players play in Vegas, maybe once a season because you get to go to Vegas and have fun. But who's going to do that on a weekly basis? And who in Las Vegas is going to stay, legit true supporters and fans of what's not realistically a local squad anymore? It's a two team from LA, you know.
Yeah. I mean, the thing that stuck out to me is you're talking about how their ownership is they're done. And let's talk about the fans. There are LAFC. Wow, I'm already getting into that. Vegas Lights fans. There are, but
We've seen
it's
them.
hard.
We've seen them at games.
Yeah, but I mean, even look at their baseball game or look at their baseball games because they have a minor league team there. If it's a day game or if it's even close to the sun being up, you're not going to go. It's hot. It's miserable. You're going to dehydrate before you realize it. And there's a reason why the Golden Knights work. And it's not because it's a fun team. They are, but also it's a break from the sun. You can go inside the air conditioning. Why do the Raiders play in a dome? Because it's not outside. I mean, if unless it is 8 o'clock at night, who really wants to go sit in the in the Las Vegas sun? No one. No one wants to do that. And that's what I'm that's what I was afraid of when Las Vegas got announced, is that unless they're going to partner with somebody that could offer them a dome or something, or they can guarantee that all their matches were going to be nighttime matches, which wasn't going to happen, you fans are just not going to go because they don't want to die.
Well, let me say this: at least with this new setup, I'm hoping no more potential for a midnight match against Las Vegas Lights, which before COVID hit, that was on the schedule for Orange County. We were going to be playing a midnight match against Las Vegas, where the kickoff would be like at 11:15 or something like that at night, and I think that's one of those matches as Orange County fans. We're like, that's a decent travel. We can go to Vegas, have a weekend, and enjoy the match, but how many of us are going to want to drive out there for a midnight match knowing we're going to have to drive home on a Sunday? It's just, and then for the players, I mean, that is such a random, weird thing to throw out there is, hey, let's kick off when you're supposed to be asleep, right? It's weird, but that's what Vegas was. Vegas was gimmicks. Any gimmick they could think of, they threw at you. Dropping money from a helicopter, having llamas in the stadium, having slot machines on the sidelines and inflatable pools with bubbles on the sidelines, and having some annoying guy like emceeing the whole event from the sidelines. And anytime there was some like random thing going on, he's like shouting and you could hear it on the USL streams. Sorry, I'm ranting about it, but at least no midnight soccer, hopefully, unless that still happens.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing, though, is that it just from the beginning, LA, or oh my gosh, I did it again. Las Vegas, just they felt exactly like what I was describing that happens in Birmingham. They acted like a minor league team. They acted like a minor league baseball team trying to get people through the door, make a few bucks here, and then leave. But that works in minor league baseball because they have 100 something games that they can do that with. Las Vegas has what's on the USL schedule on a normal year, 30 something, maybe like 32 matches. Yeah, you have probably a fourth of the matches to get the same amount of people and then use the same gimmicks. It's just not worth it. Financially, it's not worth it. And after seeing one full season of it and then a probably a fourth of another one, he was like, yeah, screw that, I'm out. And that sucks for the fans that really are Lights fans. But from the very beginning, this team was being built to sell out. I mean, I hate to say it that way, but it was.
Yeah, that's what he did in Orlando, right? Wasn't he the one of the original guys that helped stand up Orlando City, or am I remembering that incorrectly?
Um,
Uh, so
I
is
think he
that
might have been a minority owner.
okay? But I mean, you're right. That's what it looked like from the start. Was it was for lack of a better term, startup soccer. I'm going to start up this team and make it look awesome, and hope some other guy with more money than me comes along and says, "Alex, fun. I want to pay you more than you paid for that." And again, I don't have any inside information. I don't know anybody in their front office who's feeding me information. That's just what it feels like and what it looked like. And I think especially now that's what it looks like. Where he's probably feeling the pinch from 2020 like everybody else has. Doesn't want to finance 2021, so he threw up the white flag, and here comes LAFC billionaires to bail them out so that they have a place for their fringe players to get game minutes.
And that's there lies the difference, right? Orange County, we have an owner that's dedicated to like the soccer, and the team always like promotes this pathway to pro. They want to grow this pathway partnership with Rangers, bring in youth, set up relationship with youth programs and start academy programs and stuff like that. So that's where you see the difference between a Las Vegas, where it's just sort of about the almost that Shark Tank feel, right? Start up a company, get someone to invest in it, sell it off, and walk away with your money. Whereas like in areas like Orange County and some other clubs, it's owners that are actually invested in this club and want to see the clubs be successful and grow and uh, you know do good things for soccer in a domestic level, which is awesome to see, because that's one thing that US is lacking on is strong youth development that doesn't cost an arm and a leg for the parents to put their kids through that, because that's really what it is in America, is pay to play for soccer, whereas almost any other great country in soccer is they're looking for the next Messi, Ronaldo, whoever, name any big player. They're looking for the next person. They're not making that player and their family pay a life savings to do so. I know Andy has, children that have gone through soccer and probably knows what it's like to pay for or to invest in their soccer experience. I do that with my youngest son. So it's nice to see some clubs do that. I wish all the clubs in the league would do something like that.
Yeah, I mean, also just something quick on the Rangers thing for you guys. How cool is that? That there are real deal clubs that are being associated with the USL. I mean, you guys have Rangers, which it's not even just like, hey, we tweeted at these guys once and they responded. It's like a real partnership between you guys. Tulsa has Wigan, which I know they were just relegated, but I think it was kind of BS anyway, that whole situation with Wigan. But that's another story for another day. And not exactly the same, but Birmingham now has Birmingham City, which was probably one of the weirdest things of last year to happen to
That
USL.
was cool. That was
It,
cool.
so weird. I have another podcast on it, or another episode on it earlier, and it was just like, this was weird. We're about it. We're gonna start randomly tweeting at Memphis and start telling them all sorts of things about their mothers. It was very strange, but
What was the phrase that they used? It was like something the Memphis, right?
uh, for lack of a better words, fill in whatever you want with it, but you can defecate on the Memphis,
Right.
which is that's what they
The
use for
Memphis was the best part of it.
That is the best part. Yeah, that is
the
awesome.
Memphis.
That's awesome. Hey, the Rangers thing is awesome. We've gained a few listeners and followers on our social media from Scotland and even in other parts of Europe because of that. We recently sold our one of our top goalkeepers for the last couple seasons in Aaron Cervantes. He's now joined Rangers. That's official, and there's rumors that another youth player may be joining Rangers come the summer, but there's nothing official on that. Can't say I've heard anything official from the club, but it's one of the top youth players in the Orange County SC system. But no, it's awesome. It's and we've seen the impact of that because we had a couple loanees from Rangers last season. One of them, Danny Finlayson, had an amazing season. He came out of nowhere to basically solidify his place in the starting lineup on the right side for the early part of the season. And then also Cami Palmer had a great shining moments throughout the season, which was awesome. So it's great to have that relationship because again, Orange County is promoting this pathway to pro. And what better way to promote that than saying, hey, eventually you can make your way to one of the top clubs in Europe. I know Rangers aren't going to be up there with FC Barcelona or Liverpool or some other clubs in Europe, but they're still one of the most storied franchises in Europe. They're always competing for championships in Scotland. They're always competing for Europa or Champions League spots. And proof is in the pudding there. You have Aaron Cervantes, who came through Orange County and now has signed with Rangers to join their program. So it opens the door for so much stuff because now you're going to have a lot of young players in America that are going to look at Orange County as that stepping stone. If their goal is to get to Europe, hey, I'm going to go to Orange County because I know that they have this legit relationship with Rangers, and there's a legitimate way to get to Europe by going to Orange County. Right, Andy? You want to throw anything else on there?
No, I mean, I think you covered it. I think we'll have to wait and see to see how this really fleshes out over the next couple of years. But I know a lot of clubs are starting to do the same type of thing. I don't know if did someone at the USL meeting, have like a seminar about this? Because it seemed like all of a sudden, like every team had, and I'm not saying we were first by any stretch. I think, if I remember correctly, I think
Tampa
Tampa
Bay with
is.
Norwich City.
I was going to say, isn't it Norwich or something?
Yeah.
Thank you. So it kind of feels like at the USL president's meeting or board of directors meeting, whatever it's called, like someone got up and said, "Look, here's how you need to do this so that it's beneficial for everybody." Because then all of a sudden, I think it was like last year and kind of bleeding into this year now, like a lot of clubs are starting to have these, cross Atlantic partnerships and building out youth structures and all this stuff to try to, um, you know, let's be honest, they're trying to pump up their bottom line. I mean, that's what it is. We can get all, altruistic about it as much as we want, but I'm a cynic, so I just see it as, they're just trying to make some more money, which that's cool. If them making money on selling some kid to some other team means I got to watch my team more, awesome. I'm here. Um, you know, I think it's good. Again, this is one of those topics we could talk about probably all night about, what should this look like, and what are the right ways to do it and what's wrong. But I think the trajectory most teams that are getting into this, the trajectory that they're on is a good one. And it's only going to make soccer in USL better, and it's only going to make soccer in America better.
You
Yeah,
don't have to hide your words, Andy, right? I mean, honestly, Orange County probably has picked out of all the relationships in USL the top option out of all the ones USL has. I mean, nothing against Norwich City or Wigan or uh, Birmingham. You know, Rangers are a top flight club. They're not a English club that's always fighting promotion and relegation between the top three tiers. I mean, it's a team that's legitimately one of the top teams year in and year out, which is amazing. And I'm sure other clubs will get there and do stuff like that. But I just love that Orange County has that relationship with such a uh, highly well respected European club.
for sure. And for Birmingham City, obviously for us, there is no official affiliation between us. We aren't sending them players, they aren't sending us players. There's no affiliation besides we share the same name, because I'm sure someone down the line was from the original Birmingham and was like, that was a cool name. And then just said, I'm gonna name our place that. But I mean, there's just something that's just so cool about it, because I'll upload this podcast and I can look at the analytics and I'll see that probably a fourth of the people listening to this episode are probably going to be from Birmingham, England. So hi, thank you for listening. It's just something cool about seeing your logo, seeing your shirt in another country is just cool. And that's something that a lot of the European clubs, it's probably pretty normal for them, depending on where you are. Rangers, I mean, there's probably a lot of, I guess I don't like saying, I I don't know, I just made this in the right way, but probably the hipster soccer fan that's like, I'm not going to root for the big six, but I want someone successful. They'll probably have a lot of those guys saying, I'm a big Rangers fan in the U.S. But then for someone like you guys, like, you have a real skin in this now that you're seeing some of the guys that you watched for a while actually play there, and you guys are becoming fans of that team vicariously through becoming a fan of a player. And same thing for them, where they're becoming fans of, you know, Orange County, because they know eventually they're going to have some stud come through the lines and end up playing for them. So they have a little bit of skin in this too. And I think it's only good for the USL to recognize that they aren't the big dog here. They're not MLS in the United States, but they are probably having almost just as much international impact, which is pretty cool. But so let's just go on to our last topic, which is weird to me, and it's the US Not So Open Cup this year. So we are it basically everybody who won their group last year is going on except for Reno, may they rest in peace. And then they decided to fill that gap with Sacramento, I think, but I I don't fully understand why they picked Sacramento. It feels almost like you didn't make MLS, we're sad for you. Here you go. But what do we feel about that?
Well, at least it's for Orange County. It's not another disappointing performance in the Cup, because I think the last few seasons, Orange County has definitely underperformed in the Cup. I know last season, or was it last season? I can't remember now with COVID. I maybe the season before it was against LA or sorry OCFC that knocked us out at Championship Soccer Stadium, I believe in penalties, which really sucks when you have that happen. And it sucks because it's one of those neat experiences where there's always the hope that your team is going to get to play against a bigger club and you'll get to travel or even see a bigger club come to your stadium and experience that. And we get so used to who we're playing, right? Orange County, we're playing Phoenix, we're playing now San Diego, Los Dos, and it's nice to get a little something different, right? Even if it's playing against a lower division team or an upper division team, it's awesome to see that. So at least we don't have to go into it saying, hopefully we don't lose again. But you also think about it as like you miss out on that opportunity to potentially see this like amazing matchup where we get to go play LAFC or have LAFC come to Orange County to play against us in a match. And that would be an amazing experience, especially since we used to have a relationship with that club and that sort of didn't work out for us. They helped Phoenix eliminate us from the playoffs a few years ago when they were still our partner club. So, but yeah, it's bittersweet. It sucks.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it too. And Legion, I have a lot of fond memories with. I say a lot. We've only been once, but I mean, we made it through. We hosted, some fun teams. I'm pretty sure we were the ones. Maybe I'm wrong here. I'm probably definitely wrong. I feel like we were the ones that knocked out the Florida Soldiers. I feel like that was us. I feel like we were the baddies. But it was still cool seeing them come to BBVA. Then we ended up going to Louisville where we were playing just about as well as them, and then they got a cheap penalty in like the 90th, which that ref is trash. I don't know who he is. I'm sure he's a fond man and he has a great family, but I hate that guy. But no, I don't. But the U.S. Open Cup just leads to a lot of great experiences, which especially last year and now this year, where you're playing the same team 4 times. Literally playing anybody else is going to be nice. I'm excited for our friendly against Atlanta United that coming up soon. And it's not because it's Atlanta United. I mean, that's awesome. But it's because it's finally not Memphis again, or it's not, Charlotte again. It's someone else finally. And I think that's one thing with the Open Cup is that you finally get that chance to see someone that's not just stuck in your division, which I feel like in other years you wouldn't think about too much because you'll play the same team twice and then you'll go to a fun away day. At least for us, it's like, oh, hey, we have an away day against Ottawa. We get to go to Canada if you really want. That's cool. But now you don't have that option and you're just stuck in your own little region, your own little bubble, and you're just hoping for the US Open Cup to so you can at least play someone different and go somewhere else. Kind of sucks.
Yeah, so the schedule's short and the competitive league schedule is compact. Where do you cram in more games so that you can allow more teams to play, right? I think given the circumstances, they probably made the best choice that they could make. I don't think anybody at USL office in Tampa or whatever is that. No one was rubbing their hands together like, oh yeah, I get a fuck over New Mexico United. That just didn't happen. Um, does it? Teams that played really well, is this a bummer for them? Sure, yeah, I'm on board. Like it sucks, but we have to be realistic that there's only so many games you can play, and let's be honest, like Open Cup is a pretty like nerdy soccer niche, right? Like, I mean, I have a kid who plays soccer, right? So I'm around soccer parents all the time. You know how many of them know what the Open Cup is? Zero. Zero. And these are club parents at at a pretty successful and large club team, and 0.0% of those parents know what the Open Cup is. So, we can get all mad about how this team or that team didn't get a go, and these are bullshit rules because this and that. Like, nobody cares outside of, USL and lower. Like, the MLS fans don't care. They were giving away their Open Cup tickets for free in 2019. Some dickwads are trying to sell their Open Cup tickets. um, Nobody cares but like USL, NISA, League One, and all the NPSL, UPSL teams. Nobody else cares.
Well,
So we have to measure our response with um, the actual importance of what's happening. So is it a bummer? Yes. Is it the end of the world for the Open Cup? Absolutely not. Is it the end of the world for Devin Sandoval? No.
let me just say this: the biggest loss on all of this is being able to watch some of these very small amateur clubs, because ESPN Plus does a great job of streaming all the matches. And I remember a couple seasons ago when everyone was participating in this and it was amazing. Just watching some of those streams, and you're seeing, you could tell they had like one of those, lifts or whatever, where they're just putting the camera up there on a park, no stands to be seen anywhere. It's just like houses in the background, just like this random park. It was fun to be able to watch those games in those situations. I think that's the biggest loss. That's going to be the biggest thing I'm going to miss out of this, because you're not going to have that type of experience, that definite grassroots amateur soccer experience where literally it's at a park, or it's at a community field, or a high school stadium where there's it's just a neat thing to watch. If anyone's never watched that, I know Andy's talking about it's just the soccer nerds that care about this, or the lower league clubs. If you're not a soccer nerd, when this gets back to normal, go check it out. I'm not getting paid by ESPN to advertise ESPN Plus, but you
You
go
did
on
have
there,
your
you
phone
watch
go off.
this. But it's awesome to watch these like games taking place at a local like park with no stands, and it's neat to see a broadcast of that. So when it gets back to normal, watch it. If you've never checked it out, watch it. It's really fun to watch.
Yeah,
You
for sure.
watch these teams you've never heard of, and you're just watching it because it's just neat seeing the experience.
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorite things. Yeah, I guess this is becoming an ESPN Plus ad, but it's also $5 for you to watch basically a lifetime supply of soccer, which I think is totally worth it. But I mean, similar vein, they were showing the FA Cup from the very, very low rounds. I spent one morning when I was between one of my classes watching some random town in England's police department play some like fifth division football club over there. And I was like, this is so weird. I love it. And why is the police department winning? Like, it was just so strange. And you get that stuff with the Open Cup, which is the beauty of it, which is why it sucks that it's not an Open Cup this year. It's only a select amount of teams. But also, if you're looking at this like Orange County or like a Legion, who are probably more than likely going to be the second or third best team, in your little pod in your division, maybe the number one team gets a little tired. Maybe they get a little, schedule congestion. And I don't want anybody to get hurt, but you need to rest your players sometime. And maybe you'll rest your players at the right time and you'll drop points and we'll pick up points. Maybe this is a chance for some of the people or some of the teams that are not quite as up there or might be borderline winning the division. Hey, maybe this is their chance. Maybe this is their chance to take those points when they can. So, but that's really all we have for this week in USL. I know we talked for a while longer than I was expecting, but I had a great time. I was really having a real enjoyment for this. And so if anybody is listening to this and it's like, hey, this was a good conversation, seriously listen to, I want to say this wrong. I get it always confused. Orange and Black Soccer Cast. I'll go listen to it. I rarely miss an upload. They're so good. I have listened to, because I love the dude Quinn. I listened to his interview on. I think you guys had two. That so good. He's such a cool dude. I hope he does well in Phoenix. But
except for when he's playing against Orange County. Let's just say there, right? And if you go back and listen, the best episode was when he roasted Alan on our podcast because Alan had called him out on something the week before, and he knew about it because he mentioned it specifically to Alan on the podcast. So and we had we cracked up at that just that happened. So it's awesome to know that the players too sort of know what's going on our podcast, which is a neat thing as well. So, but yeah, thank you so much for having us on, Kaylor.
yeah, of course. And, if you're getting to the end of this, chances are, if you're watching this right now, I'm just going to throw this plug in. You'll probably hear it again if you're listening to this because I'm going to edit it in. But I want to say thank you for everybody listening. I don't know how many of you guys follow me on Twitter. That's where I post most of the updates. But recently, we started really climbing up in the Apple Podcast charts. I think we topped out at number 83 in all of US soccer podcast, which made us the highest non MLS or Premier League podcast in the US. So thank you for everybody listening and sharing. This is weird. I started off playing car soccer and here we are. So very strange life that we're living. Thanks, COVID, I guess. Weird. But I really can't thank you guys for listening. And seriously, go listen to the Orange and Black Soccer Cast. It's such good content. I love it, and I'm sure they'd appreciate having a little bit more people in the Southeast demographic listening.
Yeah,
Thanks, guys.
you can find us. You can find us on any of the podcast channels or I don't know what the dang words are on it, but wherever you listen to your podcast, you can find us, or you can just go to our website and listen to our podcast there. That's ocscpodcast.com. And we promise to have Andy on a few more times this season. He joins us from time to time. We call him our super fan, but he's been such a super fan. We've sort of promoted him to an official part of our podcast now. He actually has an official podcast email and everything, which is pretty cool.
Wow.
So we appreciate Andy and his support of our podcast, and Kaylor, your support as well. I mean, the fact that someone in Alabama is supporting and listening to us definitely excites us and makes us want to continue doing this, even though you're probably one of the few people that actually listens to us for a full episode. I'm blessed to have two of the people that probably listen to all of our episodes from start to finish on this with me right now. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, no, I appreciate the support and thank you so much, and much support. If anyone that we refer to you listens to this, keep listening, man. It's awesome. Support local podcasts.
Yeah, for sure. And make sure I get everybody. I think if I remember right, your Twitter handle, Ray, is at DJ Samora.
DJ Ray Samora.
DJ Ray Samora. Darn, I was close. Andy, is there anywhere that people can find you to hear your hot takes?
Yeah, I only have bad takes and worse takes, so let's go ahead and skip that part. But I will say thanks for having me on. It was fun. I love cracking beers and talking about soccer. So thanks for having me on, and I hope you enjoyed being had.
Well,
And we'll
thank
have
you.
to get you, Kaylor. We'll have to get you on our podcast. We're going to be coming back on live here in the next couple weeks, so we'll have to get you on at some point just to hear your side of the take for our Orange County listeners and our West Coast listeners.
For sure. Well, thank you guys so much for listening, and thank you guys so much for joining.
Thanks, buddy.